vlog number 60. So this one should be a little interesting. I've got two topics to cover. One has to do with AI, and other one has to do with, something that we're repeatedly running into in the field. Has something to do with AI. I'll have some disclaimers when we get into it. But a little while ago, we were talking about things like, AI, which is actually machine learning. LLMs are literally the papers that they started with. They're a machine learning algorithm that marketing folks called AI. And then in order to get their shares up, I guess, then they started talking about AGI and then ASI. And, so we're not even close to what used to be termed as AI. But that's neither here nor there. If you want to know more about my opinion on that, read the Reliable article from last week on why you need humans still involved, in particular for decision making, because AI is all about intelligence, but there is no wisdom behind it. There's a lot of claims to that now, but mostly it's marketing. Really not seeing a lot. We do a lot with AI, so I'm not taking this from the standpoint that I'm against, machine learning, but not against the concepts of what we're calling AI. However, how they're being applied, I'll give a for instance this past week. So I wrote a couple of technical papers that were to be published, and some of the comments I got back were kind of off. They didn't make much sense, and that included things from the template, which I had written directly into the templates. So I was getting these things that I was completely wrong in the templates. I was getting comments about, needing to provide information on the modeling system I used, where we don't use modeling, we use real data, just on and on and on. And then finally, I get a set of emails about that are generic, because there was two papers for this one conference, about needing to make all these corrections the day before I received the email. And these were all attributed to the folks that were running the conference, and I couldn't tell any difference between an email I would have received from them and an email from anything else. So I basically said, well, obviously you don't want my papers, so why don't I just pull them? And then I get an email back the next day basically apologizing, because the organization that writes the standards for machine learning and AI basically had used an AI, and the Agentic AI was blasting all the authors with this type of stuff. And really, for me, I was not real happy. I'd been involved in that organization since 1993. So right now I'm trying to decide, based on, let's just say I have to make some decisions, and why that came about at all had to do with, somebody making the decision to implement something and not watching over it. I've even attempted to use one of these agentic AIs to set up some travel for me, and I needed to go to a certain location. Next thing you know, it's trying to set me up for a trip overseas, and I had no intention of going to the location overseas. Now, here's what's interesting. When I run into stuff like this, I attempt to, every time I've attempted to post anything about some of my concerns on social media, in particular LinkedIn, all of a sudden those are getting suppressed. And we've all heard about the suppression stuff, but it's very interesting. But if I put anything saying, yay, AI, it is promoted like crazy, meaning that I put up two almost identical posts with one worded in a negative connotation and one written in a positive connotation. I normally get a large number of views, but in the first case, the one with the negative connotation, it took 24 hours to hit, say, 500 views. On the other one, it took 20 minutes to hit the same number. So, that basically, and these were posted at basically the same time with the same audience. So, what in the algorithm's doing that? Don't know. I do know that you need to be very, very careful when you are dealing with any type of machine learning or AI system. You need to have that human interaction. Otherwise, you're going to run into trouble. Now, as we speak on this, there's a couple other things we need to be concerned about, and that's with a lot of the new machine learning and AI, promoted as AI, continuous monitoring systems. What's not discussed about most of these, following whatever length of time the training period is, so you're basically looking for anomalies from whatever you trained it on. If there's defects, you're training normal as a defect out to wherever it detects something. And I was kind of curious because towards the end of last year, I had noted that there was a larger and larger number of people showing these fantastic finds they just caught, and they're showing the bearings, and they're catastrophic. And I'm going, okay, so somebody was doing, regular monitoring and caught this on a route. Maybe they should be picking up the frequency of the route if they're missing the earlier. No, these were continuous monitoring systems. And for the condition of the bearings that were in there, I looked and the first thing that hit me, or that I thought of, was this is not continuous anything. This is basically a dummy light. You're catching stuff that's about to fail versus catching things early on and doing condition-based maintenance. Like perhaps it was a lubrication issue, and if you'd caught it early enough, you could have added some lubrication and you would have mitigated the fault. Instead, the system monitors when you're just about to fail. And some of these things, they caught them, within 24 hours it would have locked up, and trying to tell you what they were saving. Just like bearing conditions. I've seen some where they're trying to say kilowatts lost, but that's ridiculous because that would be more than audible in most in smaller machines. And when I'm talking about large bearings like a 6318, 6220, or 6330 bearing, yeah, I can see some higher losses there just because of the sheer size of the bearing, or roller bearings sometimes too. But they're allowing these things to go until they're if the information's accurate. I just got my hands on some more presentations, and I was aghast that people were claiming on like a 100 kilowatt motor, like 15 and 20 kilowatts losses in a bearing. I'm sorry, the shaft would barely be turning at that point. You can't have those losses. The only losses you can have in the motor related to bearings would fall within the efficiency rating. So in that case, they were claiming like a high efficiency on the motor, but a huge loss in the bearing, and nothing added up. There's no physics there. Usually I'm looking at these in watts, like larger bearings, hundreds of watts, smaller bearing, tens of watts, just from friction. And but when I'm starting to talk about very high losses in a bearing, you're talking about something that's already failed. And if you're using predictive maintenance for a dummy light, then you're not getting any value. Even on top of that, because of the way the systems are set up, the feedback we're getting from many, many users has to do with a relatively low success rate. And we receive emails all the time. People are actually tracking this stuff. This follows right along with several studies that were done in the past of very, very low success rates, very, very high false positives, because they don't want to be wrong. So in effect, the costs have gone up. Always, always, always be directly involved. The whole concept behind AI and machine learning, regardless of the C-suite presentations that we've seen from some of these companies, that they'll say to the reliability and maintenance staff, "Oh no, it's not to replace you." And then you see the presentation they give to executives, and it says, "Here's how you replace headcount." Very, very conflicting presentations. That also is a little bothersome. You need to have some of this stuff. Now, let's get beyond that. So, in an effort to get the costs down in order to get sales, I guess, we're noticing a lot of these single vibration transducer applications. Let's see what something, this isn't the best, but this is what I would hope to see, other than the fact that really I'd rather have these horizontal. But I'm relatively over the bearing. I'm not real super impressed by this, but still, because of the end shield, personally, I would have them right here, right above the bearing, towards the side. You're still going to get a bell effect. You're going to have some losses in your transmission, but even vertical, this is not horrible. I'm still going to detect things from the bearings because I'm right over the bearings. Guess what we're not seeing when we go out in the field? What we're primarily seeing is, see if I've got a good one here. I want to be careful. I mean, some of these are going to show names from some of the companies. Let's grab this one. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you some details on this one as soon as I can get it out here. This is one we had detected in the field with electrical signature analysis, and they were telling us, "Oh no, there's nothing wrong with this. The bearings are fine." I mean, this was a argument, and there's where the vibration transducer is. So just to kind of make a point, because I thought it was kind of amusing. Let me get the video up. Yeah, I could have done these on slides, but figured I'd do it this way. Okay, so in this case, this is that same motor. You can see where the vibration transducer is, right? You can see the end shield is here, and this split becomes very important. I'll show you some of the formulas in a minute, and nothing on the opposite end at all. So off of this one accelerometer, they're going to detect things, and they're telling us there's nothing wrong with this machine. So let me see. I don't think I have the audio turned on, but let's see if you can hear it. Okay, so you should have heard the bearings rattling around a little bit. So let's... Okay, so basically the bearings are audible. Now, they insisted on running it. So let's see what the run looked like. And I've done this before. I mean, this is not the first time I've presented this particular bit of data. So in this case, here's the motor here, and everything's going to lag a little bit, but here's the motor here. You watch it, it's running. We're about to start it. Actually, you hear it, lower voltage. As soon as they put it up to full voltage, you hear that snap. You don't see here is the little fire pop out the side because this is lagging a bit. But in any case, that was trying to run it. Well, it had been on a belted application before, so the basically what you heard was the rotor kissing the stator. So let's see if we can see those images. So this is after we pulled the end shield off. You can see the rotor had dragged the stator a little bit. That was the popping sound. It pulled right into it. Well, that was because that bearings didn't open. So hold on a second. So in this one, you can see that opposite drive end bearing. Pretty much the balls were shot. The inner race was gone. The outer race was gone. The drive end had major fluting. And the challenge I have with this is the vibration system had said this motor was in perfectly good condition. We did also note that the grease was burned and dried because of high bearing frequencies. None of this was captured, including the belt application or the belt issue that was going on that also contributed to all of this. So, why is all this happening? And let me just say, I mean, even when we're watching presentations from companies bragging about, their latest install, let me grab a few additional here. It's, literally bragging about the latest install. It's not the transducer that's the issue. It's the literal placement. I mean, this one here, there was a whole series of steps showing it being placed. It's being placed across two ribs, so it's not even directly connected. They're both slight angles because this is a cooling rib. It's placed close to the connection box, well away from the bearings, and just glued. There was no removal of paint. There was no anything done to get that metal contact. So that paint contact, all of a sudden, I'm sorry, this is not going to detect early bearing anything, and it's not going to detect a lot of the conditions in the motor that start as high frequency stuff. As we go on, same thing here. Hard to tell if this was clean. There's no evidence of any paint removal. You can see the multiple layers of paint, so it's nice and thick. These are things we were taught, even in vibration level 1, that you don't do when you're trying to collect data. And then we get into this type of thing. This is common. Now, I get the idea is to reduce cost by wireless and then locating one sensor on the motor. But what are you getting out of that? And I've heard it's a Tri-X, and we know we've got some proprietary algorithm that does this and that. Bullshit. You don't. It's not possible. You cannot defy the laws of physics. And those claims are there. And we go right into, it's not just wireless, it's wired. I mean, what on earth is this going to detect? I mean, this is bad enough, but, I used this as a cover in an article. This is just beyond ridiculous. I mean, heck, you might as well put that over on this post over here. What are you detecting with this at all? First, it's on a springboard. And by the way, we've seen some really ridiculous stuff starting to be posted as people are walking around and they're starting to become conscious of this. You can even see where they placed it before. Now, this is not even placed on a hard, a solid piece of metal placement there like this obviously was drilled into and stuff. Why didn't they even at least put it there? Well, probably because the cord wasn't long enough. I mean, use qualified people to verify or cite this stuff. One sensor on an application like this is not going to do what you think it's going to do, and it's not even close to the stuff. So we've got the ridiculous, but that's not all. We get right into the patently absurd. I mean, come on, seriously? This was posted, and they said it fell off, and they placed it right on there, and then somebody else suggested, well, maybe it was poorly placed and it actually belonged elsewhere. I don't see any paint removed. I don't see any marks of it having been there. It looks like this cover was removed so that they could place it against it, and you can see the balls are even exposed. There's no cover on here to maintain a seal for this gearbox, and it's placed right against the shaft. Ridiculous. I mean, this is like, what bothers me is this is the type of crap that damages the industry and the concept of condition-based maintenance and reliability. This is a danger to the industry. Outright. Well, why? Let's look at a proper application or proper location for collecting data. I'm assuming these are probably for magnet bases. But horizontal, over a solid piece of metal, it leads up to the bearing. Gee, that's difficult, isn't it? I get that fan covers sometimes get in the way, but I actually watched a sales presentation on stage, and somebody was showing a video, and they were putting magnet wireless sensors right on end shields and bragging about the fantastic application it was. I'm sorry, you're damaging my industry. If you want to know what I'm talking, I mean, you could have the best software in the world, but if you're not installing correctly, you don't have anything. So let's get into why this is a concern. Well, there is something called losses. So as I go across each component, across the end shield to stator frame joint, I have losses. So a lot of my high frequency data gone. So all the stuff for early detection of a bearing defect is gone. The information doesn't exist. You cannot go back and discover it by putting some algorithm together. I'm sorry, machine learning and AI do not work like that. They don't. Well, they can make up data out of thin air. I mean, maybe maybe the claim is that they invent data, kind of like the group that I talked to once that had missing information in their CMMS. So this AI CMMS company created fake data using an AI to fill in that data, and then used their AI to then help the company make decisions. So anyways, material losses themselves. The material, as it's transmitting through, the further you get away from the bearing, the worse it is. And then if you put that transducer kind of over here, away from the away from the core and away from the stator, you've got a bell. So it's just going to ring away. And how are you doing anything with that? I don't get it. Really don't. Done this stuff for a long time, and to be perfectly blunt, when somebody tries to tell me that they can get around that, they're lying through their teeth. If somebody tells you they can make that shit up, run. Don't walk, run away from it. So just to give you an idea of what's going on here, so if I have a triax even in the middle of the motor, I have lost all of the information from both bearings. I am picking up only the structural vibration of the system, and even then I've got losses. So I lose a huge amount of information that's going to that vibration transducer that'll allow me to do anything. So I might get that, the whole building is shaking or the whole system is shaking. This is why we're going into applications where the customers are going, oh my gosh, we're losing machines left, right, and center, and nothing's being caught. Or we're getting, my favorite is all the false positives. When you start adding the numbers together, you're losing money. You're not getting a simple payback. So, I mean, if you take on one of these continuous monitoring systems, you need to make sure that the component placement is there. Have a level 2 or level 3 vibration analyst. Somebody actually qualified. Because in all of these things we're seeing, where they're bragging about, heck, I even saw a magnet transducer in an advertisement at one of the vibration conferences we went to on the chuck of a lathe as the presentation. It was ridiculous. Another one, right on the fan cover. And why these get by, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. And again, this is harming the industry. And they're they're selling this stuff as replacing personnel. You don't have your people even look at the equipment because we can magically deduce, all this stuff. And sorry, we're in there replacing vibration applications with electrical signature analysis. We use the air gap as the transducer, so it's really hard to place it wrong. Is our software better than anybody else's? Well, yeah, it is, but that's besides the point. We could have real competition, technically speaking, if people started applying this stuff correctly. Then I wouldn't be getting all the calls we're getting. I spent last week stopping by locations dealing with this stuff. And, I could sit here all day long forwarding through images going, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. I've got a handful of pictures showing good. We've gotten away from proper application of this stuff. So if you want to do your, Industry 4 or Industry 5.0, you have to properly apply the sensors, let alone get a good software or a good system. But if you're going to put these in the wrong spot, all you're going to do is accelerate, pun intended, your program and your company into the dirt. We're watching a place right now and we're helping work with them, and they're talking about tens of millions of dollars lost, not gained, through these applications. So, with continuous monitoring and everything else, and not by little names in the industry. That's the thing. There's a lot of money going into marketing, a ton of money going into marketing. Trust me, we've noted the cost of getting a booth has gone through the roof. So we're debating whether we're going to bother doing this stuff anymore from a marketing perspective until all of these investor-owned tens of millions of dollars invested in junk kind of goes away. We're already seeing it in some industries. Heck, the wind industry, what was there, like 40 or 50 AI companies that were there last year that are now gone. Like they don't exist anymore because all the funds were pulled. So, yes, that was my rant. AI, be careful. Agentic AI, be careful. And applications like this, you have to have experts watching over it. Heck, that was one of the things I insisted when we're putting in the Onyx filter stuff. There has to be a subject matter expert going by to make sure the electricians installed it correctly. Because it's so easy to have a huge opportunity and have it lost. So we make sure we spend the extra money to make sure that it's done right. But neither here nor there. Folks, have a great rest of the weekend. I am going to take out my frustration on a long walk. Have a good day.